I thought I knew what trust meant. I thought I understood my wife. On a Tuesday night in October, I finished a critical meeting with clients from Tokyo. The deal was worth $2 million, and we had just signed the contract. I was exhausted but satisfied. I texted my wife Jessica at 6 in the evening to let her know I would be home late, around 11. She replied with a simple "okay" and told me to be safe. I drove home through quiet streets with soft music playing on the radio. I was thinking about telling her the good news, maybe planning a celebration dinner that weekend. When I turned onto our street at 11:05, I saw 2 police cars parked in front of our house with red and blue lights flashing. My heart started pounding. Before I tell you what happened next, I want to know where you are watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with someone who takes jokes way too far, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. Jessica and I had been married for 3 years. We met through mutual friends at a summer barbecue party 5 years ago. She was energetic fun and had a great sense of humor. I fell in love with that cheerful personality. We dated for 2 years before getting married. We bought a small house in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. I worked as a software engineer for a tech company, and Jessica worked in marketing for a local agency. Our life seemed stable and happy. But around 6 months before that October night, something shifted. Jessica's playful nature started crossing lines. The first incident happened on a morning when I had an important meeting with my boss. I could not find my car keys anywhere. I searched the entire house for 30 minutes. I ended up taking an Uber to work and arrived 20 minutes late. My boss was not happy. When I got home that evening, Jessica was laughing. She had hidden my keys in the freezer. She called it a prank. I tried to explain how much trouble it caused, but she just rolled her eyes and said I was being too sensitive. The second incident was worse. My mother's birthday was in July. I had made reservations at her favorite restaurant weeks in advance. The whole family was coming. My mom, my brother Andrew, my aunt, and my uncle. On the day of the dinner, we all arrived at the restaurant at 7 in the evening. But there was no reservation. The host checked their system 3 times. Nothing under my name. The restaurant was fully booked. My mother looked so disappointed. We ended up eating at a fast food place down the street. It was humiliating. Later that night, Jessica admitted she had called the restaurant and canceled the reservation. She wanted to see the look on everyone's faces. She thought it was hilarious. My mother barely spoke to her for a month after that. The third incident involved social media. Jessica took a photo of me sleeping on the couch after a long day at work. My mouth was open and I looked terrible. She posted it online with a caption that mocked me. My friends saw it. My co-workers saw it. I felt humiliated. When I asked her to take it down, she said I needed to learn to laugh at myself. I talked to Jessica after each incident. I told her these pranks were hurting me. I asked her to stop. Every single time she said the same thing. I was too sensitive. It was just a joke. I needed to lighten up. I started feeling anxious in my own home. I wondered what she would do next. But I loved her. I thought maybe she would change. I thought maybe I could help her see how her actions affected people. That Tuesday in October, I had the meeting with the Tokyo clients. It was a huge opportunity for our company. The meeting started at 3 in the afternoon and went longer than expected. I sent Jessica a text at 6, letting her know I would be late. She seemed fine with it. The meeting finally wrapped up at 10:30. We had secured the contract. My boss was thrilled. I felt proud. I got in my car and drove home. The roads were empty. I was tired but in a good mood. I thought about sharing the good news with Jessica. Maybe we could finally afford that vacation to Hawaii she had been talking about. I turned onto our street and immediately saw the flashing lights. 2 police cars were parked directly in front of our house. My stomach dropped. Was Jessica okay? Had something happened? I parked quickly and ran toward the house. 2 officers stepped out of their vehicles. One was older, probably in his mid-40s, with graying hair. His badge said Detective Harris. The other was younger, muscular, maybe around 26. His name tag read Officer Martinez. Officer Martinez held up his hand. "Freeze. Put your hands where I can see them." I stopped in my tracks. My hands went up automatically. "What is happening? This is my house. I live here." Detective Harris stepped closer. "Sir, we received a call about a break-in. Can you provide identification?" I slowly reached for my wallet and pulled out my driver's license. My hands were shaking. The address on the license matched the house. Detective Harris looked at it carefully and then looked at Officer Martinez. But Officer Martinez was not convinced. "Turn around. Put your hands behind your back." "Wait, what?" Why, I could not understand what was happening. "Standard procedure, sir, until we verify the situation." I felt cold metal handcuffs snap around my wrists. The sensation was shocking. I had never been handcuffed in my life. They led me to the front lawn and told me to kneel down. I complied. My knees pressed into the grass. I could feel the damp earth soaking through my work pants. Lights started turning on in neighboring houses. Mrs. Patterson, the 70-year-old woman who lived next door, appeared at her window. Her eyes were wide. The Thompsons, a young couple on the other side, came out onto their porch. They stood there watching. I felt a wave of shame wash over me. Here I was, a respected software engineer, on my knees in handcuffs on my own property. What must they be thinking? That I was a criminal. A danger. Then the front door of my house opened. Jessica stepped out onto the porch, and she was laughing. I could not believe what I was seeing. Jessica stood there with her phone in her hand, laughing. Not a small chuckle. She was laughing hard, almost doubling over. I stared at her. My brain could not process what was happening. Detective Harris turned to her. "Ma'am, is this your husband?" Jessica nodded, still laughing. "Yes, that is Carlos. My husband." Officer Martinez looked confused. "So there is no intruder?" Jessica shook her head. "Nope. I just wanted to see his face when he came home to police cars. It is a prank." There was silence. I felt my blood pressure rising. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. A prank, I repeated the word. My voice was shaking with anger. Detective Harris looked at Jessica with a stern expression. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a crime." Jessica waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, it is just a joke. Look at his face. That is hilarious." She turned to me. "Babe, you should see yourself right now." Priceless. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Not physical pain, but something deeper. Betrayal. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had just orchestrated a situation where I was handcuffed like a criminal in front of our neighbors. And she thought it was funny. Detective Harris unlocked the handcuffs. "I am sorry, sir. We have to respond to all calls." I stood up slowly, rubbing my wrists. They were red and sore. I could not look at Jessica. Officer Martinez was shaking his head at her. He looked annoyed. Detective Harris turned back to Jessica. "Ma'am, this is not funny. You wasted police resources? We could have been responding to a real emergency." Jessica's smile faded slightly. She looked irritated now. Okay, I get it. Sorry." But her tone was not sincere. She sounded like a teenager who had been caught doing something wrong, but did not actually feel bad about it. Detective Harris pulled out a notebook. "I need to file a report about this." "Ma'am, you could face charges for filing a false police report." Jessica's expression changed. She looked worried now. Weight charges, I was just joking around. Jokes have consequences, ma'am. The detective wrote down information, asked Jessica a few questions, and then both officers got back in their cars and drove away. The neighbors were still watching. Mrs. Patterson shook her head with a look of disappointment before closing her curtains. Mr. Thompson said something to his wife, and they went back inside their house. I felt like the entire neighborhood was judging me, judging us. I was the man who could not even control his own wife, the man whose wife thought it was funny to call the police on him. I walked into the house without saying a word. Jessica followed me. Carlos, come on. It was just a joke. Why are you so mad? I turned around slowly. My voice came out cold, colder than I had ever spoken to her before. A joke? You called the police on me. I was handcuffed on our lawn, in front of our neighbors. Jessica waved her hand again. They will forget about it tomorrow. No, Jessica. They will not. And I will not. Oh my God, you are being so dramatic. Something broke inside me at that moment. This was not the first time she had told me I was too sensitive or too dramatic. But this time was different. This time she had gone too far. There was no coming back from this. I need you to understand something, Jessica. This is not okay. This has never been okay. Your pranks hurt people. They hurt me. Jessica shrugged. If you cannot take a joke, maybe you are the problem. Those words felt like a slap across my face. I realized in that moment that Jessica did not think she had done anything wrong. She had no intention of changing. And I could not live like this anymore. I walked upstairs to our bedroom. I grabbed a pillow and a blanket from the closet. I went back downstairs and threw them on the couch. Jessica called after me. Seriously, you were sleeping on the couch because of this? I did not answer. I lay down in the darkness. My eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing. And slowly a decision began forming. I did not sleep that night. I lay on the couch replaying everything in my mind, every prank, every dismissive comment, every time she made me feel small. At 6 in the morning, I got up. Jessica was still asleep upstairs. I took my laptop and sat at the kitchen table. I searched for lawyers in Portland who specialized in family law. I found the office of David Brennan. He had excellent reviews and specialized in both family law and criminal cases. I called his office the moment they opened at 8 in the morning. I explained that I needed an urgent appointment. The receptionist heard something in my voice because she scheduled me for 10 o'clock that same morning. I texted my boss and told him I needed to take the day off for a family emergency. He immediately agreed. I had been a dedicated employee for 6 years. He trusted me. I changed into clean clothes, got in my car, and drove to the lawyer's office downtown. I did not tell Jessica where I was going. I did not tell her anything. David Brennan's office was on the 12th floor of a modern building in downtown Portland. The waiting room was professional and quiet. At 10 o'clock sharp, a secretary led me to his office. David was a man in his early 50s with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He shook my hand firmly and gestured for me to sit down. I told him everything. Not just about the night before, but about the past 6 months. The hidden car keys, the canceled birthday reservation, the humiliating social media post. All of it. David listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me seriously. Carlos, what your wife did last night crosses multiple lines. First, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor crime. You have grounds to press charges if you choose to do so. I nodded slowly. Second, this pattern of behavior shows emotional abuse. Combined with the false report, you have very strong grounds for divorce. He explained the process, step by step. We could file criminal charges against Jessica for the false police report. At the same time, we could file for divorce. We would need to gather evidence of the previous pranks. Text messages, social media posts, witness statements from family members who had been affected. I want to do this. All of it. I heard myself say the words, and I felt certain. David nodded. I will prepare the paperwork today. You will need to sign the criminal complaint and the divorce petition. I will also coordinate with the police department to move forward with the charges. Can you come back this afternoon? I agreed. I spent the next few hours at a coffee shop, staring at my laptop screen, but not really working. My mind was somewhere else. At 3 in the afternoon, I returned to David's office. The documents were ready. I read through them carefully. The criminal complaint detailed the false police report Jessica had filed. The divorce petition cited irreconcilable differences and included a description of her pattern of harmful behavior. I picked up the pen and signed both documents. My hand was steady. David said the papers would be served to Jessica the next morning by a sheriff's deputy. I drove back home at 5 in the evening. Jessica was in the kitchen cooking dinner. She acted like nothing had happened. "Hi, babe. I made spaghetti. Your favorite." I looked at her. This woman still did not understand what she had done. "I am not hungry. I will be in the office." I went into the spare room we used as a home office and closed the door. I called my brother Andrew. He lived in Seattle and worked as a high school teacher. I told him everything that had happened. Man, I never liked her pranks. But this is insane. You are doing the right thing. Can I stay with you for a while after this? Of course, brother. My door is always open. You can stay as long as you need. I felt a sense of relief. At least I had somewhere to go. I quietly packed a suitcase with clothes and essentials. I left it in the office, ready for the next morning. I did not sleep in the bedroom that night. I stayed on the couch again. Jessica came downstairs once to ask if I was really going to keep acting like this. I did not respond. She eventually gave up and went back upstairs. Wednesday morning arrived. I woke up at 6:30. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table waiting. At 7:15, the doorbell rang. Jessica was still upstairs getting ready for work. I opened the door. A sheriff's deputy stood there with an official-looking envelope in his hand. "Are you Carlos Martinez?" "No, I am Carlos Rivera. He lives here, but these are for Jessica Rivera." I signed the acknowledgement of delivery form. The deputy handed me 2 envelopes and left. I carried the envelopes upstairs. Jessica was just coming out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel. "What is going on? Why was there a sheriff at the door?" I placed both envelopes on the bed. "These are for you. One is a criminal complaint for filing a false police report. The other is divorce papers. I will be staying with my brother in Seattle. My lawyer will contact you." Jessica's face went white. She sat down on the edge of the bed. "What, Carlos, you cannot be serious. I have never been more serious in my life." I walked to the office, picked up my suitcase, and headed for the door. Jessica ran after me, still in her towel. "Carlos, wait. We can talk about this. Please." I turned around one last time. "There is nothing left to talk about, Jessica. You crossed a line. And I am done." I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jessica standing on the porch holding the 2 envelopes. For the first time since I had known her, she was not laughing. I moved to Seattle and stayed with my brother Andrew in his 2-bedroom apartment. It was small but comfortable. The first week was hard. Jessica called constantly. She sent dozens of text messages apologizing and begging for another chance. I did not answer any of them. I had made my decision, and I was standing by it. 2 weeks later, there was a court hearing for the false police report charge. Jessica had to appear before a judge. The evidence was clear. She had called 911 and reported an intruder knowing there was no intruder. The judge was not amused. Jessica was fined $1,000 and sentenced to 60 hours of community service. She tried to argue that it was just a prank, but the judge cut her off. "Ma'am, emergency services are not toys. Your actions could have resulted in real harm. People have been hurt or killed because officers were responding to false calls instead of real emergencies." The divorce process took 3 months. Jessica tried to fight it. She wanted to keep the house. She claimed I was overreacting and that we should try marriage counseling. But with the evidence we presented, including the criminal conviction text messages from the previous pranks and statements from my mother and brother about the birthday incident, the case was strong. The judge ordered an equitable division of assets. We sold the house and split the proceeds. Jessica got half. I got half. And most importantly, I got my freedom. The divorce was finalized in February. I signed the final papers in David's office. He shook my hand. "You did the right thing, Carlos. Never doubt that." I thanked him. He had been more than a lawyer. He had been a steady voice of reason during the hardest months of my life. The first few months after the divorce were not easy. I felt lonely. I felt like a failure. I questioned whether I had overreacted. Maybe I should have tried harder to make it work. Maybe I should have given her another chance. But Andrew was there every time I started doubting myself. "She did not respect you, man. You deserve better than that. Do not let guilt trick you into thinking you made the wrong choice." I started seeing a therapist in March. Her name was Dr. Linda Chen. No, wait, I need to use a different name. Her name was Dr. Patricia Reynolds. She specialized in trauma and relationship issues. In our sessions, she helped me understand something important. I had been in an emotionally abusive relationship. Jessica's pranks were not about fun or humor. They were about control. They were about making me feel small, embarrassed, and powerless. She enjoyed seeing me uncomfortable. That was not love. That was manipulation. Understanding this was painful, but it was also liberating. I was not overreacting. I was not too sensitive. I had been subjected to behavior that was harmful and wrong, and I had every right to leave. Dr. Reynolds taught me about boundaries and self-respect. She helped me see that walking away from toxicity was not weakness, it was strength. I started going to the gym. I joined a hiking group that Andrew recommended. Every weekend we would drive to the mountains and spend hours on the trails. The physical activity helped clear my mind. The fresh air and beautiful scenery reminded me that there was still good in the world. I made new friends through work. I connected with colleagues at the Seattle branch of my company. We would grab lunch together and sometimes hang out after work. Slowly, I started feeling like myself again. The version of myself that had been buried under 3 years of constantly walking on eggshells. 6 months after the divorce, I bought my own apartment. It was a 1-bedroom place on the 4th floor of a building with a view of the Space Needle. It was not big, but it was mine. I decorated it the way I wanted. I hung up posters of my favorite movies. I bought a comfortable couch. I set up a small home gym in the corner. Nobody was going to hide my belongings as a joke. Nobody was going to humiliate me for entertainment. I had peace and quiet. I had safety. I had control over my own life again. 1 year after that October night, I was sitting on the balcony of my apartment. It was a cool evening in late autumn. I could see Mount Rainier in the distance, its peak covered in snow. I held a cup of hot coffee in my hands. I thought about everything that had happened. About Jessica, about the police, about the divorce, about the long, difficult journey of healing. People often say it is just a joke to justify behavior that hurts others. But real jokes do not cause pain. Real jokes do not humiliate people. Real jokes do not make someone feel small or unsafe. I learned that love does not mean accepting everything. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship. And when someone continuously crosses your boundaries, disregards your feelings, and refuses to change, you have the right to walk away. No matter how much it hurts, no matter how much you love them. You have the right to choose peace over chaos. You have the right to choose dignity over dysfunction. I did not regret my decision, not for a single moment. I stood up for myself. I refused to accept treatment that was beneath my worth. And in doing that, I found something I had lost. I found my self-respect. I found my freedom. I found myself again. The Carlos who did not have to wonder if his partner would embarrass him for a laugh. The Carlos who could come home from work without anxiety. The Carlos who knew he deserved better. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. And sometimes walking away is not giving up. It is choosing yourself. It is choosing peace. It is choosing a life where you do not have to wonder if the person you love will humiliate you for a laugh. That choice saved me. And I hope if you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, you will have the courage to make that choice too. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a relationship where someone crossed your boundaries and called it a joke? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about standing up for yourself and choosing your own peace. And share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find the strength to choose themselves. Take care of yourselves and remember that you deserve respect. Always.